unfortunately, she gets killed too early, but I love her performance in that.
I kept waiting for somebody to come along and say, you're not a real actress, get out of here. But nobody did. Then, at that time, it was before video, I saw the movie on the big screen in a theater, and I'm like, wow. I've never aspired to be an actor, and I haven't really taken acting classes. I've learned on the fly. The driller killer, Michael Valella, would sit there rubbing his drill with Vaseline. And I'm like, what is he doing? And they're like, it's method, you know?
She learned her chops on the set from whatever directors she was working with, from whatever script she was working on.
It just comes from somewhere inside.
She has that quality as an actress that you want to follow her across the screen.
God help you.
No matter what the character is that she plays, whether she's a victim or she is the one inflicting the pain, she has a certain humanity to her that makes the audience identify with her.
You only think of yourself, you slut.
In Horror Vision, she was like this goth photographer, you know, and in Witch House 3, she plays a witch. You know, even though they may be cameos, she makes the most out of them.
You don't have to be the lead to have one of the most poignant characters in the whole film.
If I learned anything from Brink, it's that less is more. And as long as you believe in what's going on inside your head, you don't have to try that hard on the outside.
Hello, Marilyn.
Holy shit, Rhonda Cooper.
Good to see you too, sister.
You look awful. What happened to you?
I grew up.
Other actors should strive to be that graceful with it.
Who are you talking to now? Tell me the truth. Who do you love? You ran my ass.
You play characters or situations where there's no template for having done this, for being possessed by an evil spirit, for turning into a vampire, for being hunted by a killer, or turning into a homicidal maniac. Where have you had that kind of life experience? You haven't. So you have to just kind of wing it.
Getting into acting through the world of comic books and superheroes, that was her orientation to this. I don't think she wanted to do Macbeth. I think she wanted to do scary movie things. She loved that stuff.
Every time she tells me she's doing a new movie, I say, oh, do you kill or are you killed? And she sometimes says both. And then she'll tell me that she's going to, you know, oh, it's a great part. I stick this dynamite in a fellow and I light it, and then he blows up, and then I take his wife and dangle her out the window.
She's been shot, she's been stabbed, she's been run over, she's had her limbs pulled apart by aliens, she's been poisoned, she's, you know, arrows. You name it, that's how she's been killed. And when she ran out of ways of dying, then she got on the other side of it, and now, you know, she kills people.
Beat me, killed me, yeah, she did above. I never killed her, I never did. Damn it, I have to make up for that.
Once I committed myself to acting, having never even imagined that I would ever do this, I suddenly really liked it. I liked playing the kind of roles I did, either a good girl or a very bad girl.
The sweet, doe-eyed, you look into her face and you trust it, safe again, and then she can turn on you. Oof.
I think one of the best things, if you're ever going to see Brink doing something, is Grandmother's House. That sort of like full bore running at you with the knife. And she's such a little thing, you know, but she's coming at you. I mean, she's just chasing people down and jumping on their back and stuff.
Unlike so many of her contemporaries, Brink quickly realized that to be successful in this work, one has to market oneself.
From the very beginning, she's been her own manager, her own agent, her own rep in all things.
I never had an agent that worked as hard for me as I worked for myself.
She had a 976 horror telephone line for a little while in the early 90s, and she has had 4 comic books based on a character based on her likeness. She's had licensed statues.
Brink has always been very conscious of her fan base and trying to keep them informed as to what she's doing. So even if it's just a little rinky-dink film that she's doing somewhere in the Midwest, she can alert all of these people, hundreds of people, thousands of people on her mailing list that this film is in production, and then they can go to their local mom-and-pop video store or even Blockbuster and say, hey, we want this film, and create a demand for it before it's even finished.
But this isn't the only reason Brink has appeared in so many films and continues to work. Her professionalism has earned her the respect and admiration of filmmakers and her peers.
Brink's a pro.
And you know she's going to be on time. She's not going to be some drama queen that shows up 6 hours late. She didn't mean I got a flat tire. You know, she respects the project first. And that's how I feel about it, too. And I think that's why people respect us. Not troublemakers.
She'll be in makeup for hours, and she won't complain, and she'll know her lines, and she'll show up.
She'll just come in, knock it out.
And she'll even improve the script.
She'll throw a lot of ideas out there. Well, what if my character said this?
And I think directors just know that and like, wow, we need Brink.
I guess I overlook the fact that Brink is such a professional because I just take it for granted.
You will see so much repetition of the same director using her 4 times.
That's not enough.
And that's because people love, at this level, to have dependability, to have talent, to have a built-in fan base.
I know who you are.
You do?
Oh, shit!
If you cast somebody you don't know, you're marching into the unknown.
No matter what happens, number one, she knows her lines, she knows your lines, and she'll do it. No matter what happens, she keeps going.
I am Sabrina Morgan, not some timid little chorus girl. I have an appointment, and I mean to keep it.
She doesn't mess up. The only bloopers you have are if someone else messes up in the scene with her.
In this one take, we had this old car, like a 20s car, and he used to go down the hill, stop, they get out and have this big fight, and the driver gets out of the car, but as soon as he takes his foot off the brake, the car starts going. And so he stops, and Brink just keeps going as if nothing has happened.
Things have to happen so quickly on a low budget, and it's high emotion, and everything's happening. You have only a take or so, that she's very calming.
She doesn't ask for anything except for a caring in the eyes and a good hug and just, you know, to share broccoli and ranch dressing, you know, on the set.
If you watch some of Brink's earlier performances, you'll notice something drastic has changed between them and her work in later films.
When I first heard my voice, I didn't like it very much.
This obsession with hunting you call sport, isn't it just a little inconsistent?
So I worked on trying to get, you know, a little more character and personality into it.
I mean, let's face it, Brink has the sexiest voice on the planet. She's the Suzanne Plachette of our generation, man.
But there is something else about her, something you can't quite put your finger on. Her longtime friend, Sean Fernald.
Sometimes you'll be sitting there talking to Brink, and just out of nowhere, it's almost like her voice takes on a slightly different tone.
Elohim, Adonai, Zeboah.
When she has those moments, she doesn't know where they're coming from, so she doesn't remember them afterwards.
She told me that her fans are not really aware of this aspect of her.
I don't know about Brink's psychic abilities, but she always has some little smile to me when she's around me, so I don't know what that means.
You're delusional. Am I? Yes. I've always had a psychic gift ever since I can remember as a child. My sixth sense goes in and out. It's not consistent. It's not like I can go to the racetrack and win. But it was really strong in the mid-'80s.
When I first met her, she knew me as the great psychic, and we shared our studies together.
Christina had shown me a lot about how to read the tarot cards and things, that I decided to use it as a source of revenue. I symbolically hung out my shingle as psychic reader. Welcome. Frances McCaffrey was my very first paying customer.
And had no idea that I was, in fact, her first.
I put the cards out, and in the home area, I saw change, moving. And I said, did you recently move?
No.
Then you're planning on moving.
And I said, no, that's really impossible.
I said, well, nonetheless, it says here that you're moving.
I'm like, okay, this lady's way off.
15 minutes after Frances left my house, the phone rings. It's her. She says, I just got home, open my mailbox, you're not going to believe it.
And it was an eviction notice.
So
6 weeks later, she was the guest of honor at my housewarming party.
I would go off to work when we were living together, and she would stop me at the door and say, oh, by the way, this is gonna happen to you today, or watch out for this, or, you know, be wary of whatever. And sure enough, it would happen.
And it was rather upsetting for me, because I don't, you know, I'm one of these guys that, like, you know, once I make up my mind that something doesn't exist, please don't confuse me with the facts.
And the weird thing is that when I would come home and tell her about it, she'd be like, oh, did I say that?
Right around 1986, I was on a trip with Frances, and I was taking a bath and the door was closed, and she's hearing this sobbing coming from the bathroom, and she's like, "Brink, what's wrong? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "It's gone." She said, "What's gone?" I said, "My psychic ability, it's gone. It's not there." Because, you know when you're in tune with things and all of a sudden it's like there's a wall there, you're shut off. So that same year, I started becoming a screen queen actress. I felt like I had to trade one thing for another. And it slowly came back, but never as much as it used to be.
And now we get into the parts that really came to define her.
It's party time.
Her late 80s work with actresses Michelle Bauer and Linnea Quigley.
Holy shit, not that! Guys have like their football heroes, and female geeks who like horror films have Brinke Stevens and Michelle Bauer and Linnea Quigley. They don't just take their tops off and like scream around, like they actually do really cool stuff.
Okay, right foot red.
I really like Nightmare Sisters.
Nightmare Sisters.
Nightmare Sisters, she plays this very nerdy little character.
Someone give me a hand.
Turns into this demonic seductress.
You call this fun? What kind of girls are you anyway?
There's just no like good, fun horror movies anymore. The kind that she and Linnea and Michelle Bauer did.
They were TNA comedies that had a supernatural or horror overtone.
Those films really defined an era.
The Scream Queen era.
All three of the Scream Queens sort of had a different image. You know, like Michelle was sort of, I don't want to use the word slutty one, but her characters were sort of like loose girls, you know what I mean? And then you had Linnea, who was sort of like the sweet blonde.
Eat shit.
And you had Brinke, who was always playing the brainy character.
Silence, impudent dog.
Brinke was one of the first to understand the importance of appearing at conventions. Back when she was starting out, it was virtually unheard of for actresses to appear at conventions and sell pictures of themselves and autographs. And in the beginning, that wasn't really why Brinke was going.
Conventions were a way to get over my shyness and to put myself out there. I was so introverted. In high school, if anybody talked to me, I would just blush and look at the floor. But I would do these dance routines at San Diego Comic-Con where 6 beautiful pallbearers in cloaks brought me out in a coffin, which I had custom made. And it was so hot in the coffin, and I'm claustrophobic anyway. I was so nervous, and I was afraid I was going to pass out, and I thought, great, they're going to set the coffin down, open the door, and I'm going to fall out.
Seats to the front were hard to get for that event, and you had to watch where you walked because there were puddles of fanboy drool all over the room, and she instantly became a celebrity at the conventions.
She really was kind of the forerunner of all of this whole Scream Queen and going to conventions and sitting behind the table.
You know, this is before, DVDs and all this, paraphernalia type of stuff that you could load up a table with.
I think a lot of people have learned there's a value in merchandising themselves.
Conventions are a great way now to supplement the income. I think I did 10 movies last year, but that doesn't completely pay the rent. I probably did a dozen conventions.
Going to conventions is a very good way to supplement your income because, as most people know, doing low-budget horror movies is not a very good decision financially.
And besides the extra income that you earn, it's a great place to meet other filmmakers. I often get movie jobs through conventions, and it's a wonderful opportunity to meet your fans face to face.
She really loves the fans, and she's like, off to, some show in, Lower Podunk. And she's talking about it like it's, Oscar night.
When I was growing up, I was considered a nerd. I hadn't yet discovered my inner beauty.
It's 11, 2, 6, and 2.
But in college, I found other people that were like me. And then you realize that you're not the only one. You're not as alone as you feel. One person said to me one time, "Face it, Brinke, you're a nerd just like the rest of us. You just happen to be better looking." So I feel like these are my people.
There's this whole sub-world out there of Brinke fans. I mean, it's not a cult, but it's a ton of people.
I mean, I've seen these guys come up and, well, you don't remember me. I met you at CreatureCon in Baltimore 14 years ago. Oh, sure I do. And you're so-and-so and everything. It's amazing.
She never forgets anybody's name.
And that kid that you signed that autograph for, you posed for, he'll go out and watch everything you're ever in. For the rest of his life, he'll wait watching you because you're more than just a person on the screen.
I always see her at Chilera, New Jersey at the convention, and I'll go sit with her at her booth and for as long as I can stand it because I don't know how she's so nice to everybody.
I saw Brink in glowing fanboy and fangirl situations.
They can get creepy back there.
I saw her deal with creeps and cooties.
Half-drooling idiot.
My head would explode. I'd be punching people.
Some of them are psychotic.
And she always had the same level. It wasn't like she was wearing a face.
She's at some table with these guys hovering around her, trying to extract from her some personal contact where they can run back to their friends and tell them, Brinke Stevens said this to me.
Not to say that men are shallow, because they're not, but I think most of her male fans are just like, Brinke is pretty hot.
Let's play doctor.
I do enjoy conventions because I feel like it's a traveling circus, like we're all part of a carnival.
Conventions and personal appearances have taken her all over the world.
I was invited down to Brazil for a film festival in 1996, and I knew that they spoke Portuguese. So on the long plane flight down, which was like 14, 16 hours, I had all my Portuguese phrase books. I go to the film festival, there's 10,000 people there to hear me speak, and I addressed them in Portuguese, like, muito obrigado pela sua hospitalidade, meu nome é Brinke. And they went wild.
I know that she speaks a few languages.
I have an aptitude for languages.
French,
Portuguese,
German,
Russian,
a little bit of Russian,
Canadian,
Pig Latin, I don't know, Esperanto.
Brinke